My daughter-in-law said she was self-made. Then I took one step that changed everything. I was standing at the kitchen sink, washing the same coffee mug I have used every morning for the past 16 years. The sun was coming through the window the way it always does around 7:30 in the spring. Soft, yellow, almost kind. I could hear the birds outside and the sound of my own hands moving the sponge around the rim of that white ceramic mug. It was a normal morning, the kind of morning you forget 5 minutes after it ends. But I remember every second of that morning because it was the last normal morning I would ever have. My name is Margaret, but everyone calls me Mags. I am 71 years old. I have 3 children, 2 daughters and 1 son. My son is named Daniel. He is 43. He has been married to a woman named Vanessa for the past 15 years. They have 2 children, a boy named Lucas, who is 12, and a girl named Chloe, who is 9. I have spent more hours of my life loving those 4 people than I have spent breathing air. That is not poetry. That is just the truth. Vanessa came into our lives when Daniel was 28. He brought her to Sunday dinner at my house, the house I raised my children in, the house I still live in today, the house that might not be mine for much longer. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let me start where it began. Let me start with the woman who smiled at me across my own dining table and told me she had always wanted a mother like me. She was beautiful in a sharp way, dark hair cut clean at her jaw, eyes that looked at you like she was already 3 steps ahead in the conversation. She wore a cream-colored sweater and gold earrings that caught the light every time she turned her head. I remember thinking she seemed too polished for my son. Daniel was always a bit messy, a bit slow to laugh, a bit unsure of himself. But Vanessa made him stand taller. She made him use better words. I loved her for that in the beginning. I loved her because my son loved her. The first year of their marriage was full of Sunday dinners and holiday mornings and long afternoons on my back porch drinking iced tea while the kids ran through the sprinkler. Vanessa would sit next to me on the wicker sofa and tell me about her mother who had died when Vanessa was only 19. Cervical cancer, quick and cruel. Vanessa said she never got to say goodbye. She said I reminded her of the mother she lost. She called me Mom once by accident and then turned red and apologized, and I hugged her and told her she could call me anything she wanted. She cried in my arms that afternoon, or at least I thought she cried. Looking back now, I wonder if those tears were real, or if they were just another tool in her box. The cracks started small, so small I could almost pretend they were not there. Vanessa would mention the house, how big it was for just me, how I could sell it and move into something smaller and use the extra money to travel. She said it with a smile, like she was looking out for me, like she wanted me to enjoy my golden years. I told her I did not want to travel. I told her this house was full of memories. The kids learned to walk in the living room. My husband built that deck with his own hands before he got sick. I could not leave. I could not sell. The house was my skin. She let it go. For a while. Then she started asking about the finances. How much did I have saved? Did I have a will? Had I thought about what would happen if I could not live alone anymore? She asked these questions at dinner, in front of Daniel, in front of the children. She made it sound like concern, like responsibility, like she was the only one brave enough to have the hard conversations. Daniel would sit there chewing his food and nodding along. He never once said, "Mom, you do not have to answer that." He never once defended my privacy. He just looked at Vanessa the way a puppy looks at its owner, waiting for the next command. I should have seen it then, but I did not, because she was my daughter-in-law, because she had lost her own mother, because she let my grandchildren call me Grammy, and she drove them to my house every Saturday morning without fail. I thought that was love. I thought that was family. I did not know it was a long game. I did not know I was the prey. The first big thing happened in the summer of 2021. Daniel came to my house alone. That was unusual. Vanessa always came with him. She did not like him being out of her sight for too long. But he showed up on a Tuesday afternoon with a manila envelope under his arm and a look on his face I had not seen since he was 17, and trying to tell me he crashed the car. He sat down at my kitchen table and opened the envelope and slid some papers toward me. He said, "Mom, we need to talk about power of attorney." I asked him why. He said, "In case something happens to you." He said, "You are not getting any younger." He said, "It is just practical." He said, "Vanessa and I want to make sure your wishes are followed if you cannot speak for yourself." I looked at the papers. The legal language swam in front of my eyes. I could not make sense of half of it. I told him I wanted to think about it. I wanted to show it to my lawyer. Daniel put his hand over mine and squeezed. He said, "Mom, we are your family. You do not need a lawyer. You have us." I signed it because I trusted him, because he was my son, because I never believed for 1 second that the boy I held in my arms at 3 a.m, when he had fevers and nightmares and growing pains, could ever hurt me on purpose. I signed the papers and I handed them back to him, and he smiled and kissed my forehead and said, "See, that was easy." Then he left. And I was alone in my kitchen with the coffee mug and the sunlight and the feeling that something had just shifted under my feet, like the first second of an earthquake. Over the next year, Vanessa changed toward me. Not all at once, slowly, the way water wears down a stone. She stopped calling me Mom. She started calling me Margaret. She stopped coming inside when she dropped off the kids. She would pull into the driveway and honk the horn and wait for Lucas and Chloe to run out. If I walked to the car to say hello, she would keep Galindo rolled up and pretend to be on her phone. I asked Daniel if something was wrong. He said no. He said she was just tired. He said she had a lot on her plate. I believed him because I was still blind, because I still wanted to see the daughter-in-law who cried in my arms about her mother. The worst part is, I kept giving. I babysat Chloe when she had the flu so Vanessa could go to a work lunch. I paid for Lucas to go to soccer camp when Daniel said they were tight on money that month. I bought groceries for their house when Vanessa mentioned they were waiting for a paycheck. I did it all without being asked, because that is what grandmothers do. That is what mothers do. We give and we give and we give until our hands are empty, and then we find something else to give, because we do not know how to stop. I did not know they were keeping a ledger. I did not know every dollar I gave them was being recorded in Vanessa's mind as proof that I had money to spare. I did not know every hour I watched those children was being filed away as evidence that I was healthy enough to keep doing it. I did not know they were building a case against me inside their own heads. A case that said I did not need my house, I did not need my savings, I did not need my independence. A case that said I should just hand everything over and move into a facility where someone else could wipe my mouth and change my sheets and wait with me for the end. The discovery happened on a Thursday. I remember because Thursdays are when I get my hair done. I had driven myself to the salon like I always do. Then I drove myself to the grocery store like I always do. Then I came home and parked in the garage and walked into my house and heard a voice that did not belong there. It was Vanessa. She was in my living room. She had a set of keys in her hand. Keys I did not give her. Keys I did not know existed. She was on the phone. She did not hear me come in. My footsteps are soft. I have always walked quietly. My mother used to say I moved like a cat. Vanessa was pacing back and forth in front of the fireplace where we used to hang Christmas stockings, the fireplace where Daniel proposed to his first girlfriend when he was 22, and she said no, and I held him while he cried. Vanessa was standing on top of all those memories, and she was saying words I will carry to my grave. She said the appraisal came in at $420. She said we can list it in the spring. She said the nursing home on Maple Street has a bed opening up in June. She said she would handle the paperwork. She said I did not need to know anything until it was done. She said, and I am quoting her exact words, "Margaret will be easier to move when she thinks she is losing her mind. A little confusion goes a long way with someone her age." I stood in the doorway of my own living room and felt the blood leave my face. My hands started shaking. Not the gentle shake of old age, the violent shake of a woman who has just realized she has been carved open while she was still breathing. Vanessa turned around and saw me. Her face did not crumble. It did not soften. She did not drop the phone or gasp or apologize. She just looked at me. Then she smiled. That same smile she gave me at the dining table 15 years ago. And she said, "Oh, Margaret, you are home early." I asked her what she was doing in my house. She said she was just checking on things. I asked her how she got in. She held up the keys. She said Daniel gave them to me. I asked her about the nursing home.
She said, "Do not worry about that yet." I asked her about the appraisal. She said maybe we should sit down and talk. I told her to get out of my house. She did not move. She stood there in her cream-colored blouse and her gold earrings, and she looked at me the way you look at a dog that has outlived its usefulness. She said, "Margaret, you need to understand something. We are trying to help you. You cannot live here forever. This house is too much for you. The stairs are dangerous. The yard is too big. And frankly, you are not as sharp as you used to be." I picked up the phone on the end table, and I told her I was calling the police. She laughed. She actually laughed. She said, "Go ahead, call them. Your son has power of attorney. This is his house as much as yours now. You signed the papers, remember?" That was the moment. That was the explosion. That was the sound of my entire life collapsing into a pile of rubble at my feet. I remembered the manila envelope. I remembered Daniel's hand over mine. I remembered thinking I was being a good mother by trusting my son. And now I was standing in my own living room being told that nothing belonged to me anymore. Not the house, not the yard, not even my own mind. They had taken it all while I was making coffee and babysitting their children and pretending we were one big happy family. I called Daniel that night. He did not answer. I called him 7 times. He did not answer. I called my oldest daughter, Sarah, who lives 3 states away. She picked up on the first ring. I told her everything. There was a long silence on the line. Then Sarah said something that broke me more than Vanessa's smile.
She said, "Mom, I tried to warn you. I told you something was wrong. I told you to be careful, but you never listened to me. You only listened to Daniel." She was right. I did only listen to Daniel because he was my son, because he was the baby, because I spent 43 years protecting him from every bad thing in the world, and it never once occurred to me that I might need to protect myself from him. The next morning, I drove to a lawyer's office, a real one, a woman named Diane with gray hair and reading glasses, and the kind of voice that has told 1,000 clients to sit down and shut up and let her do the talking. I gave her the story. I gave her the papers. I gave her the name of the nursing home Vanessa mentioned. Diane listened without interrupting. Then she took off her glasses and rubbed her eyes and said, "Margaret, I am going to be honest with you. This is going to be ugly. Your son has power of attorney. We can challenge it. We can argue undue influence. But it will take time. It will take money. And it will tear your family apart." I told her my family was already torn apart. I just did not know it until yesterday. The legal battle lasted 14 months. 14 months of depositions and phone calls and certified letters, and sleeping 4 hours a night because my mind would not stop replaying every single conversation I ever had with Vanessa. 14 months of watching Daniel refuse to look at me in the hallway outside the courtroom. 14 months of not seeing my grandchildren because Vanessa told the court I was unstable and visitation would be harmful. 14 months of sitting alone in my house while the walls got quieter and quieter and the silence got louder and louder. Sarah came to stay with me for a while. She slept in her old bedroom. She made me eat breakfast. She held my hand during the worst parts. But she had her own family, her own husband, her own children. She could not stay forever. And when she left, I was alone again. Just me and the coffee mug and the sunlight, and the knowledge that my son had tried to put me in a home before I was ready, so he could sell the roof over my head and put the money in his pocket. The court ruled in my favor. Diane was good, better than good. She was a shark in a cardigan. She proved that Daniel had coerced me into signing the power of attorney. She proved that Vanessa had researched nursing homes before ever mentioning the idea to me. She proved that they had opened a separate bank account in my name without my knowledge. The judge revoked the power of attorney. He ordered Daniel and Vanessa to pay my legal fees. He said some things from the bench about greed and elder abuse and the sanctity of family that made me cry right there in the courtroom. Not happy tears, just tears. Just the release of 14 months of holding my breath. I thought that would be the end. I thought we could start to heal. I thought Daniel would come to me and apologize and say he was sorry and ask for forgiveness, and we could be broken together, but at least we could be broken together. That did not happen. He walked out of the courthouse with Vanessa's hand in his. He got into his car. He drove away.
And he has not spoken to me since. It has been 3 years. 3 years of silence. 3 years of birthdays and Christmases and Mother's Days with no phone call, no card, no text, nothing. I still see Lucas and Chloe sometimes. Sarah brings them to visit when she can. They are bigger now. Lucas has a deep voice and hair on his upper lip. Chloe wears lip gloss and rolls her eyes like a teenager and asks me questions about what high school was like when I was young. I love them. I love them so much it hurts. But I can see the confusion in their eyes. They do not understand why their father does not come with them. They do not understand why I live in this house alone. They do not understand why their mother says things about me that do not sound like the woman who taught them how to bake cookies and tie their shoes and catch fireflies in a jar on summer nights. I have thought about selling the house, not because I want to, because the memories are too heavy now. Every corner holds a ghost. Every floorboard creaks like a voice from the past. I sit on the back porch, and I can still see the sprinkler. I can still hear the laughter. I can still feel the weight of my son in my arms when he was small enough to carry. I close my eyes, and I am young again, and my family is whole, and no one has told me I am losing my mind, or stealing my future, or smiling at me while sharpening a knife behind their back. But then I open my eyes, and I am 71 years old, and my son chose his wife over his mother, and my daughter-in-law won in the only way that mattered to her. She did not get my house, but she got my son. She got my grandchildren. She got my peace. And she got to watch me stand in my own living room with shaking hands and a broken heart, while she told me I was not sharp anymore. The worst part is not the money. The worst part is not the house. The worst part is the silence. It is the phone that never rings. It is the empty chair at Thanksgiving. It is the Christmas morning when you wrap presents for children who will not come, and you put them under the tree anyway because you cannot accept that they are gone. The worst part is loving someone who does not love you back, and realizing that person is your son. I still go to the grocery store on Thursdays after my hair appointment. I still make coffee in the same white mug. I still water the plants on the back porch, even though some of them have died, because I forget, and then I remember, and then I forget again. I am not as sharp as I used to be. Vanessa was right about that, but she was wrong about everything else. I am not confused. I am not losing my mind. I know exactly what happened. I know exactly who did it, and I know exactly how much it cost me. The other day, I was in the checkout line at the supermarket. The woman in front of me had a little boy in the cart. He could not have been more than 3 years old. He was holding a stuffed dinosaur, and he kept turning around to look at me with those big, curious eyes. His mother noticed and smiled and said, "Say hi to the nice lady." The little boy waved his tiny hand and said hi. I waved back. And then I had to leave my cart right there in the aisle because I started crying and I could not stop. I drove home with tears running down my face. I sat in my car in the garage for 20 minutes before I could go inside. And when I finally walked through the door, I went to the kitchen and I washed my coffee mug and I put it in the cupboard. And I thought about how strange it is to be a mother with no one to mother anymore. How strange it is to be a grandmother who only sees her grandchildren when her other daughter has time to drive them across 3 states. How strange it is to be a woman who spent her whole life building a family only to find out that family was built on sand. I do not know if Daniel will ever come back. I do not know if Vanessa will ever feel sorry. I do not know if Lucas and Chloe will remember me the way I remember my own grandmother, who used to let me eat maraschino cherries straight from the jar, and who smelled like rose soap, and who told me I could be anything I wanted to be when I grew up. I hope they remember me. But hope is a dangerous thing when you have already lost so much. If you are listening to this and you are a mother, please listen to what I am about to say. Do not sign anything your children put in front of you without a lawyer. Do not believe that love protects you from greed. Do not assume that the people you raised would never hurt you. They can. They will. Not all of them. Not most of them. But some of them. And by the time you find out which ones, it is too late. I am 71 years old. I am sitting in my kitchen. The sun is coming through the window. I am holding a coffee mug. And I am telling you this story because someone needs to know what happened to me. Someone needs to know that a woman can lose everything without losing her house. That a woman can be surrounded by silence and still hear the echo of every word that was never said. My name is Margaret. My son does not love me anymore. And I am still here, washing the same mug, waiting for a phone call that will never come.